Welcome back to another episode of the OffTrack Experience. Here we go off track to talk to interesting and exciting people. On this episode, sit down with Devin Cooper, a good friend of mine, and we go into a little bit of everything. We go into his sporting career, we go into mental health, we go into his photography and videography, and kind of like just dive deep into how he ticks and how he has become the person he is. So I hope you enjoy it and let me know what you think.
It's a good world to be in though. You get used to it. Some people don't like it. Some people really, I've talked to some people about it when they go into it and they feel like they're in their own head. So you got to bring this up about a fist
It's
away.
like you're fully literally talking into your own head here.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Do you like it or do you think it's too much?
I don't know. I don't know what to think yet.
I think it's good because do you feel like, I don't know, everything else, when you have a conversation, there's always other things.
Yeah, noises
happening.
and stuff going on around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's just me and you.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's very rare that happens, hey?
No, I agree. With the, you know what I brought the other day was the AirPods.
Mm.
And when you have the silence, noise cancellations, you're just sitting there and you're like, I can't hear anything else around me right now. This is weird.
It's nice though, isn't it?
Yeah, you're literally sitting right. I did it on the tram the other day and it was insane.
Everything else is just blacked out.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Do you feel like you can focus more though?
I don't know. It's kind of depends on what you're doing, I guess. It's you sort of drop in and you're sitting in a different world and you're everyone's sort of slowing down.
Mm.
You're going, whoa, I'm thinking a lot right now.
Because I was in Amsterdam and I just, for whatever reason, I was by myself and I just had these Bose noise cancelling headphones on and I just put them on and ride around the city and just playing music and I was like, this is awesome. You're kind of got a soundtrack to your holiday.
Yeah, you're sort of you're separating yourself from everything else around you.
Mm.
It was I listened to a podcast with, do you know Fred again?
Yeah.
He was talking about how he goes and mixes DJ sets in the middle of a nightclub and he'll just chuck on his noise cancelling headphones and he's just mixes away and he's the one thing about going out to a nightclub is if you can separate yourself from the music of everyone else, they're going hectic, but you're so focused in.
So kind of like a calm within a storm, hey?
Yeah, super interesting.
True.
Yeah, real interesting.
Before we get too deep into it, just like to thank the sponsor of this episode, Athletic Greens. Now, if you want to change up your supplement routine, you want to feel good in the morning, recommend you guys get on this. If you want 5 free travel packs and 1 free year supply of vitamin D, follow the link in the description, follow the cues, and you'll be able to get that and get your day started right.
Anyway, we'll get into it. So here with Devin Cooper, the man, the myth, the legend. He's definitely just taken my podcast studio to another level. You're like my guru now of technology. You kind of you seem to part the seas, guide the way.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Have you? Because you told me the other day as well. You're kind of been a jack of all trades, and now you've suddenly landed on videography, photography, producing, and whatnot. But let's go back and paint a bit of a picture. We'll go back right to this kind of start, kind of paint a picture of who you are. What was it like growing up and where did you grow up and what was the family life and dynamic like?
Yeah, interesting. That's a really deep question to start off with.
We need to find out who you are.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in country Victoria, so in East Gippsland. Lived in an old school out in the middle of the bush, which is really interesting. Yeah, family life's good. I've got a big family, extended family as well, so always a lot of travelling when I was a kid, so back and forth to Melbourne. And I played a lot of sports when I was younger, so a lot of AFL and golf. And yeah, sort of.
Golf as a kid?
Yeah, I was competing when I was 10. I think I started competing at a professional level when I was 10, doing competitions and had my handicap and was playing against all the oldies when I was a kid. And yeah, it was awesome.
It was proper then?
Yeah, it was proper. It was I think I got my first club when I was 2. And then from then on, I was just played.
Was your dad like Tiger Woods' dad, which was you're going to be the next big thing? Or was he kind of just doing it for fun and it kind of went that
No,
direction?
it was more, I think it was my nana's brother gave me the club to start off with. And then my dad played and my uncle played and then a bit of the family played. And I was well, why not just play golf?
You just did it for fun?
And so I just started for fun and I never played footy when I was a kid. It was just golf on the weekend. I'd just go play golf while everyone else was playing games of football. I was having to hit around with 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds on the golf course, just having the time of my life. And yeah, all I wanted to do was go pro for so long. It was so interesting. Like I got pretty good at it, and then yeah, a few things happened that just sort of pushed me down a different realm. But
Do you remember those key things that changed that kind of pull you out of that?
not 100%. Like I still play. I literally had a hit of golf yesterday. Like I love golf. It's like my sort of getaway. It's like it's such a challenging thing too. It's like it's all in the mental. So if you're not into it, it's like it's so hard to play. But then I played AFL as well. So then I was playing on a Sunday, golf, football on a Saturday for a very, very long time. And then, yeah, sort of going through the process of skipping through a lot of what happened. It's like I had a pretty bad injury, and then I stopped playing AFL just before I was trying to make it professional in AFL as well, just like the year before the draft. I had like a real bad injury, so then I couldn't play golf or football.
What was the injury?
A leg injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty bad, and yeah, I was out of sport for like a good 2 years.
Was that an injury playing football?
Yeah, injury playing footy. Yeah, in pracky match.
How did that kind of, what was your mindset kind of obviously having such a dream to become something and then having an injury kind of throw a spanner in the works right at the time when you needed it to work out?
Yeah, look, to be honest, it was the worst time of my life. Like, not even going to skip over that at all. Like, it was probably the hardest thing that I've ever dealt with. And like, in terms of, if you really think about the core fundamentals of life, it's like I've been to the bottom. Like, I was at a point where I didn't want to be here anymore. Like, I was like, I can't do it. Like, I was that emotionally done. Like, I'd literally just had everything taken away, that I was like working so hard. Like, I was training flat out, I was playing golf flat out, and I was like, I had these two different paths to go. And then I also started a building apprenticeship when I was in this situation. So I was 2 years into a building apprenticeship, playing footy, playing golf, and then it sort of all just ended real quick. And then moved from the country to the city, and yeah, it was pretty hectic.
Did you feel like you felt that way, or so strongly that way as well, because you had wrapped your identity so solidly around I'm a footballer, I'm a golfer, I'm these things, and then obviously when that's taken away, you kind of lose who you are? Do you feel like that was a big part of it?
Yeah, 100%. Like from those moments, I really think that it's a massive thing that a lot of people sort of get caught up in now. It's like defining yourself by what you do. Like it'd be the same as like saying you ride bikes. It's like you're much more than just one thing. It's like I don't classify myself as like a videographer or a photographer. Like I go like real broad spectrum of like a storyteller. Like I fundamentally think that I'm a storyteller, and that's what I believe, and no matter what it is. So like if I want to go tell stories by, I don't know, painting a picture or showing someone around a history lesson, like it's still part of who I am, and it's not done on the one thing. Like, so when I was there, I was always classified as the sports guy or the footy player or the golf player. It's like, what even is that? When that's gone, then like, who are you?
Yeah,
like,
what's there? Yeah.
What are you left with at the end of it? Like, because you can keep going down this path for so long. It's like I know so many people who have struggled when they've had an injury, or like they've just gone a completely different route. It didn't work, but then they're just so lost for so long in their life. Like I think it took me work around about 10 years probably to full self work and deep behind it to try to get myself into a positive mindset.
Kind of accept that that's not who you are.
Yeah.
What were some of the key things you did to kind of flip that idea of how you saw yourself being these other things and realize you're so much more than that, and no one cares. Like no one cares if you're a footballer or a mountain biker or whatever. Like they just care if you're a good person and you show up for them in whatever aspect of life they want you to show up. The rest is just kind of noise. And what were the tools you used to see that within yourself more or less?
Yeah, like to be honest, the first point of like that whole change in my life is probably turned to alcohol. Like I was drinking and partying quite a lot to probably escape like the whole reality of what was happening. Like try to run around like it's not real. It's not real. It's not happening. And then yeah, I sort of had a point in my life where I don't know what it was. I can't pinpoint the exact turning point in my head when it shifted, but I remember calling up my parents and just being like, I have to move away from Melbourne. I need to go to the Gold Coast. I need to leave. they're like, oh, well, when do you want to do it? I was like, oh, the next couple of days would be good. And like, I got a very supportive family, and Dad like drove to Melbourne, packed all my shit up, and then within like 6 days I was on the Gold Coast. I completely like, because I was at a point in my life where I'm like, I need to do something, and it's not going to be here because like AFL in Melbourne is so consumed everywhere. Like everybody just talks about it, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it at the moment. I needed to do something else. Then I came to the Gold Coast and sort of did the whole, lived in Surfers for a while and partied around and had fun doing it. But I hit a point where one of my idols at the time, Ali Day, had posted that he was training with Taylor Cecil. And I was like, oh, I need to get my body right and I need to get my head right. So what am I going to do? Like, am I just going to keep going down this path of self-destruction, or am I going to like pick myself up and change my life? And then, I just happened to message Tay. I was sitting on the beach actually about to crack a beer. I'll never forget it. And then he responded just before I went to open it, and I just tipped the beer out and I said, that's it, my life's changed right then and there. And then, the whole remake of picking up a second job to be able to afford to get my mental track back on. Yeah, so.
What do you reckon drew you to the Gold Coast? Like, what was the thing that said, okay, I want change, this is the place it's going to happen? Was there something that stood out, or was it just like what you'd heard or friends, or was there something drawing you to it?
Yeah, I've been here before. I used to compete in surf lifesaving as well. That was another thing I did. So I was up here for Aussie titles for 2 years in a row. And I was staying around Mermaid area, and like, during the competition and stuff, I was like, oh, it's in the middle of winter. It's quite nice. It's quite, this is a pretty sick spot to be, hey. And a lot of people were just happier, and the sun, I like the sun. So
there's a feel to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to describe. It's like, because there's like everywhere you go, there's nice places, but there's something about this and the community of people and how everyone seems happy to meet you.
Yeah.
And they've got a cool story, they're doing a cool thing, and then that motivates you to want to like, oh man, I want a cooler story. I want a cool, like, it pushes you in that direction. So how did you hear about, because I've had a little bit to do with Taylor Cecil as well, how did you actually link or get put onto him? And like, did you say your...
It was literally, so it was literally Ali Day, who I'd been following since I was a grom, because surf lifesaving, he's the champion, the GOAT. And he posted something of him, he was looking for clients to take on board, and I'm all for like things happen for a reason to a certain extent, but like it was really cool that it popped up then, and I was like, I'm just going to reach out. Like, this guy's training the best in the world. What's the worst that could happen? And then so I did, and just happened to really work out. And I'll never forget, we went I went in for my like assessment on the day, and I remember being hungover as shit. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I literally was just so up front with him. I was like, mate, but I want to change. Like, and he could see that. And that sort of just sparked off on this whole spiral over the next, I think I trained with him for 2.5, 3 years.
So when did you move up here originally?
It's a great question. Like maybe 2013, 2014, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, quite a while ago.
Yeah.
So I finished school in 2012, moved to Melbourne for a year and a bit, and then sort of scooted up here.
And then straight in, because I've had like a little bit to do with Taylor, and like you said, absolute legend of a person. And I guess he's like, he understands how people work, and then you can see that he's quite engaged with what's happening, and obviously reads into what you're saying. And even if like you're talking absolute bullshit, I think he can see through that, and like takes a lot of like, okay, you're saying this, but you're really feeling like that. He can kind of, and that's a skill to be able to understand people that way. And I think like a good mental coach, life coach, whatever you want to call it, whatever he identifies as, is super important to have. And like you see, his work is like Mick Fanning and a lot of other top athletes, and obviously I think he's got his own place now in Palm Beach that he's set up.
Yeah, he's training out in Palm Beach, and then they've got a new thing coming on the horizon very soon.
It's cool to see. But how long were you working along like with him? And how did that kind of play out, and how did that kind of change the direction of where your life has kind of gone from there?
Yeah, so I think 2.5 years, nearly 3 years, I think, training with Tay, so twice a week. every
And
week.
was this for like a purpose, or was this just I need to get my head straight, I need to change the direction of my life, and this is the best way to do it?
Yeah, so I had a lot of physical problems, the extended from the injury and just bad habits from there of like never really getting the body back to a good shape. So the initial thing was, first of all, I want to be able to move good again. I want to feel good in my body. Like I think when I was like 20, I felt literally like my body was a 50-year-old. I could hardly move. Like I had arthritis in my legs and I was just hating life. Like it was just not fun. So I was like, first thing is get the body right, get the head right. So I got the base foundation of the body right, and then I sort of had a switch flick in my head where I was like, I don't necessarily want to train crazy anymore. Like I've done that for so long that I didn't want to do it anymore. So then I really just started diving in on the mental side of things. So yeah, I went pretty hectic for still to this day on the mental side and how much value that brings to everything else you do. So you get your mental right, then the physical will follow. And then, and then basically it came to an end with training with him because I went over to Europe, and it was sort of like the last hurrah of like, I had built up enough tools with him to be able to continue to on in my life, and yeah, went to Europe, and that's where my life changed forever. So
What was the change, and what were you doing? What was the whole? Why did you go to Europe, and what was the big thing that changed?
well, the thing with Europe is like one of my mates is, I think he was hiking in Bolivia, and I just messaged him. I'm like, mate, what are you doing? He's from back home, and I was like, what are you doing traveling? He's like, oh, I just sort of said, fuck it, I want to get out of here and I want to see the world. And he goes, oh, do you want to come meet me at running with the bulls in Barcelona, in Spain? And I was like, oh, I had a pretty big job at the time and a lot of responsibilities that I couldn't just literally walk away. He's like, this is in 2 weeks. I said, I can't do that. And he goes, what about Oktoberfest in 4 weeks? I said, all right, I'm coming. And then so I literally went to the work the next day. I quit my job, and the people I was living with had a bit of a weird situation when I left. But it was basically I left my old life behind, the moving completely away from the partying, the bad mentality of the other people that I was surrounded by, and then basically went to Oktoberfest and worked at Oktoberfest, and I managed a little coffee truck over there. And then one day, this is how the whole photography world started. Someone goes, oh, the photographer's too drunk to take photos. Do you want to take photos? And I was like, I've only ever used my phone before, so I don't know what I'm doing. But I never forget, they handed me a Nikon, like a real old Nikon, and the photographer was trying to show me. He was so drunk, and I was like, I think I'm just gonna have to get YouTube up here and just figure out what I'm gonna do. And then I sort of set the photos, took the photos, and then gave it to them, and they were stoked. They were like, these are so good. They were better than the photographers. And I was like, and then they paid me, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good, eh? Like, all I did was take a couple of photos, and then sort of did the rest of my trip, and I was taking photos on my phone the rest of the trip. I always liked taking photos. And then I got back to Australia and then bought my first camera. But that's basically how that all started.
That's a pretty good first gig to come out completely out of the blue. It's like very natural, very just, hey, can you do this? And then to get paid, because I was gonna say, with photographers, most people don't get paid for a long time. So it's pretty funny that your first gig, which was unplanned, you got cash for it, and then I guess it sparked that thing to be like, all right, maybe we can.
Yeah,
We
I
can
can do
do-
something that I enjoy doing and get paid for it. And I was like, it's a pretty good start, I think.
So that was the catalyst to becoming a photographer, videographer.
Yeah.
Just the drunken guy at the Oktoberfest that couldn't shoot the stuff. That's gold. And I was going to say, before we get into the photography and videography, because you said you've had an assortment of different jobs, is that by choice, or is that just kind of something that just falls on your lap? Are you kind of just flowing through life and you're like, oh, try this, oh, try that, or try a bit of everything?
Well, yeah, like now coming at it a bit of a different perspective and like where my mental mind's at and my understanding of the abundance of life and the way that things flow, it's like every time that I had the wrong job, something would come up and would force me into a different path. And it's not that I do, like everything I do is at 100%, like and I've completed a lot of things. But yeah, it was just sort of more things were coming up, and it was just evolving towards basically where I am today. And like at the time, it doesn't seem like that. You're like, oh fuck, I just can't seem to work this out. Not that I have worked anything out, but like you just think that, oh, geez, I thought I was on a run there, and you were. Like, and now I look back at it, and I was going in a good path to set myself up for just the mental side of things and to create like good friendship groups and that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's pretty interesting.
But do you feel you went through those jobs that you might not have thought at the time, this is what I want to be doing, but then because of that, it opened up an avenue into something that you're like, oh, I do want to do this, and you kind of ping pong around to different things. But you seem like you're someone that's very open to trying new things and just seeing how it turns out. Like you're very curious to be like, oh, is this going to be for me, or it's not? Where I think a lot of people will go, this is what I do, this is all I'm going to do, and then they stay in that.
Yeah.
And they don't, it's like the whole thing, you don't know what you don't know. So it's like try something new and it might be your favorite thing. Or if it's not, at least you know, and then you kind of tick that off and go on to the next.
Yeah, 100%. I think when I started, like when I came up here, I was working hospitality, but then I ended up like, I was in a good position, and I was like cocktail bartending high end, and I really loved it. And then I got poached from another business basically, and this is a bit off topic, but they basically just go, oh, we got a management position opened up, do you want it? And I was like 19 or something at the time. I was like, I know a lot. Like I had good teachers beforehand, and like I had the skills, and I was like, I was captain in football. I did this, and why not? I'll give it a crack. And then I took over managing a cocktail bar at a pretty big hotel in Surface, and I had a lot of people underneath me, and I was just sort of learning things on the fly. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I've always like a massive believer in like, if you're ready for something, it's not what you're supposed to be doing. You should never be ready for what's next. Like if you know what's next, you should be like, if you have this job come up, for example, you're like, oh, I'm 100% comfortable, I can do that. It's like, maybe you need to push yourself a little bit further. Like what is that little bit of like challenging? Like if you want to develop and grow as a person, it's like put yourself into the uncomfortable situations, the unknown, and just see what you can do, because then you limit yourself. I don't like doing that.
There's a saying I heard that I absolutely love. It says, bite off more than you can chew and then chew like fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
So it's like that. It's like do something and step into something that's completely out of your comfort zone. And then like it really can't go wrong. It's like, I heard this thing, it's like you either lose or you learn.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you don't lose, you learn. Like it's like you...
Well, what is the worst thing that's going to happen?
Especially in like a job like that, like bartending or something like that. It's like, what, you don't make someone the proper drink right or something, or you get fired from that job. Sweet.
Yeah.
Wasn't for me. Next thing.
Yeah, move on. It's like, and then it's like it comes back full 360 as well. It's like if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. It's not everyone's human. People make mistakes. The cool thing about mistakes is you learn. And if you can't make, I think in America they're massive for it. Hey, they're like fall fast or fall forward. There's one of I can't remember who said that. Maybe Denzel Washington said that. Basically, like just fail as much as you can, as fast as you can, and move as fast as you can forward. And it's the only way you can do it. But if you tread through life as just like trying to, oh, I don't want to fail, or I don't want to do this, it's like you're just gonna, I guess, push real slow for a very long time until
you're gonna be stagnant.
Until you're unhappy.
I heard another one where it's like aim for the moon, and if you come short, at least you'll be in the stars. So it's like you're still leveling up. If you're trying to do new things, like there's a UFC fighter, Alex Volkanovski, and he just fought for the lightweight championship, and he ended up losing. A lot of people said he won the fight. I thought he won the fight, but it's still like it leveled him up as a fighter. Like he went through a new challenge. He went to like a different weight class, and the thing he was saying after the fight is that everyone preaches all this stuff about get uncomfortable, put yourself out there, like challenge yourself. They say all that. And then he went and did it, and everyone's like, why are you doing this? It's such a big risk. What? I'm like, you're the same person that says you should challenge yourself will also put you down for then challenging yourself, which is a crazy thing to...
It's ridiculous. So much. There's so much of that. It's actually kind of like, and it's actually, I can't remember the podcast I was listening to, the other talk. Oh, it was a guy from like where I'm from basically, and he's a big mogul in the sporting, like I can't remember what radio station it is, but basically he runs all the media for like sports Australia wide. And he said the one thing that with Australians who are really good at our culture is we'll shoot everyone else down as fast as we can, because it's like if someone else is doing something you want to do, it's like you don't want them to do that, but you sort of do want them to do that. So like that, and in the Volkanovski situation, I listened to the podcast with him talking about all the stuff that he went through, like the no money, and he's like working his ass off to try to make it, and he's like nearly fell short, and he's like, I've just got to keep believing in the process, and I just got to keep moving this way, even though everyone else is telling me, don't do it. It's not going to work. Like people will happily tell you it's not going to work because they're probably scared that you're going to get there before they are.
To a successful person though, that doubt is like fuel.
Yeah.
Like I feel like to like someone that is successful, like doubt it can either crush you or it can just give you this extra gear that you're like, all right, well, how good is it going to look? Because it's like this thing. It's like if you succeed and everyone doubted you, you look like a hero. If you don't succeed and everyone doubted you, it's kind of like, oh, well, everyone doubted me anyway. So it's like you can't really lose in that situation. It's like people have written you off anyway. So if you don't do well, it's not like, I guess they're going to be like, told you so. But I know I always enjoyed when people would kind of like not believe in what you could do. Like I had a time when I was at school and I remember it's so, you know, when you can go back to a moment in your head and like you can remember who was there, you can remember the exact moment and it's just like picture perfect. But I remember my principal was walking around my school and he asked me and my group of my friends were at lunch and he's like, oh, who's playing sport this weekend? And I just said, oh, I'm racing this weekend. And one of my mates said, oh, that's not a real sport. And I remember so clearly him saying that. And now I just think back to like that was motivation. Obviously at the time it stuck with me, but I just think about like my fake sport has given me a job. It's taken me around the world. It's got me paid. It's made me meet all these people. It's helped me live this lifestyle that I love. And I just think back to like someone saying like, that's not a real sport. And it just like that stuck with me. It's kind of like when someone doubts you, it's like, oh, watch this. And then how you can progress with that thing. But because obviously back then everyone played football, mountain biking wasn't really a mainstream thing, still kind of isn't, but
yeah,
it's funny how people would doubt you, but then it's just like, all right, kind of watch this. And then you're like how you grow and learn from that.
Yeah, it's so interesting though, because like even that situation, imagine if you had to listen to it.
Yeah, put my head down, going, oh, it's not a real sport. Why am I even trying at it? Like and that kills so many people's dreams.
Oh man, it is ridiculous how many, like I think in school situation, right? There's so many things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be an architect for so long. Teachers said, "You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not good at English, so you can't get into the courses." And I was like, "Yeah, but I want to do it." Like, I could never understand. I could never get my head around why I was always told I couldn't do. Like, if I went back to school now and I reckon I told some of the teachers the shit I've done, they'd literally just go, "There's no way you would have done that." Like, it's just crazy. Like. But if you are somebody who can be affected by that, like that's crazy to think that just with somebody saying something that you don't like can completely change the direction of your life. And that's kind of sad, I feel.
And that'd be more common than not as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like the amount of people, like you say, in Australia, the amount of people that would just shit on someone's dreams and ideas. And it's, again, it comes back, the same person that would tell you what you're doing is a joke and you'll never make it and you're not doing the right thing will be the first person to come up to you once you've succeeded and go, oh, hey, man, like, congrats on this and that.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are you doing kind of thing? It's like, I'd rather people doubt me and then if you do well, still be like, whatever, like just at least be a dick the whole way through. Don't change
Don't
sides.
come back now.
Yeah, don't change sides halfway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same people will doubt you until you actually prove them wrong and succeed, and then they'll be your best friend and want to kind of get that shine, I guess.
I think it's like super interesting though as well, because like if you go back to a thing I've been learning about recently is abundance, and talking about abundance mindset basically in that scale. And those people can't see the abundance. Doesn't mean that they necessarily want you to fail. It's just like they have something within them that they're struggling with. And like, so I show like empathy to those people because it's like, I understand you're going through something. Like if you really badly want to see me fail, or the thing that I'm doing is not a real job, or whatever you want to say, I can meet you on that level, because like I can see that there's something you're struggling with. And if if you then go back and have like an argument on it, it's not going to get anybody anywhere. But if you can meet them on that level of like compassion and just be there and just listen to them and voice that, you might just happen to get through to that part of them that might let them go to the next person and say, oh, I believe in you. You should try that. And that all comes full 360 of like, if somebody comes and negatively talks you down and be like this, it's like, yeah, like there must be something going on with you. So if I can be a stepping stone for you, I can take it. Like in my life, I've built up enough like base foundation that it's pretty hard to rock me when people give me bad feedback or they try to say bad shit about me. Like I'm like, I don't care because I don't operate on that frequency. It's like, how can I get you to come up here with me? Like, what can I do to help you? And it's like, yeah, if you can do that, like, especially I'm from a small country town, you're from a small country town, you know, in those small country towns, it's even more prominent.
Oh, it's hard, man.
It's more
like,
prominent.
Why are you trying?
Yeah.
Why are you trying, man?
Yeah. Why are you not going to the pub and drinking and betting this weekend?
Yeah. Do you think you're better than us? Kind of mentality. And it's the thing, like you say, if someone kind of throws that at you, you kind of, instead of throwing negativity, anger back at them, you can just be like, are you okay, man? Like, you're good. Like, how are you doing? What's happening in your life? What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? What's a goal of yours? What's a dream of yours? Like, kind of put that on them and then actually start the conversation of how to achieve that and the things you can put in place. Because, like, I feel like anyone that can become really successful, the way to get fulfillment after doing that is to help other people succeed. And once you can bring everyone up, that's when you're like, oh shit, this is really winning now. Yeah. It's like once you take yourself out and be a bit more selfless and actually go, okay, I've achieved what I want to achieve. Now, how do I lift up my friends, my family, group of people around me? Like, then you're like, okay, now this is really winning.
Yeah, 100%. That's literally been my driving factor for everything that I ever do. It's like, I don't want to do this alone. I don't want to be successful by myself. Like, I want to bring people up with me. Like, I want to have a good life with a good group of people and just enjoy life to its fullest potential, whatever that may look like. Like, there's no point of just like doing it by yourself. It's like, how can I find good friends and how can I fucking help them win too? Like, what does that take?
I heard this thing the other day was Shaq was getting interviewed, Shaquille O'Neal, and he was doing deals like when he was signing deals with when he was playing basketball, and they'd go into like a meeting and he'd have his like lawyers and stuff with him, and he'd say the people would talk to like I'd look at him and then they'd talk to his lawyers because they didn't believe he understood the lingo, what they were saying. So he got sick and tired of kind of being like the guy in the room that wasn't actually getting the attention or getting the information, and he didn't understand it. So he's like, I want to get my master's degree in business or whatever. And he went to a professor or whatever you want to call them. And he said, hey, I want to get my master's. And he's like, oh, well, it's too late to start the course and you have to do it online. He's like, I don't want to do it online. I want to do it in person. He's like, oh, well, we need 15 people to fill a class. So he's like, all right. So he paid for 15 people, like all his mates. So all his friends, he got 15 of them to fill a class and get their major together. That's and like sick. Something like that. Like if you've got the ability to do that, do it.
Yeah, for sure. Because then it makes like everything you do from then on is like they succeed and they win in life. It gives you fuel to then want to win even more. Like you're like, they're winning, I can win even more now. Like, and it's like, it's all about who you surround yourself with too. Like if you can help that change that frequency of like how they're thinking, it makes your life easier. That's like the whole 360 of it. It's like you can lift your mates up and help them succeed and be their mindsets change, their attitudes change, their behaviors change. And then it becomes like this whole just ebb and flow of like your mates, your relationships, your friends, your family, your jobs, whatever it is. It just happens way easier than trying to push against the grain for so long. Like it's.
And I heard a thing the other day, you're most likely, I think, I kind of almost don't want to say this because I don't know if it's 100% true, but they were saying the most likely thing to get old, like for aging and health and everything is your relationships with people. So if you have good relationships with everyone, you're more likely to live longer. So it
makes sense.
Dependent on obviously if you're way overweight, but I think it comes back to if you have good relationships, you don't feel so inclined to stay at home and eat Twinkies and get overweight. Like you're more like, okay, let's go see my friends, and then your friends will be like, because your friends will call you out on stuff as well. You're getting like if you've got good friends and you're just like kind of downward spiraling and you're eating too much and you're not going out, if you've got good friends, they will pull you out of that. But if you've got no one around you properly, it's like, oh, well, why does it matter and who cares? And then that mentality can put you in a pretty dark place pretty quickly.
Yeah, you spiral out of control. You
Oh,
go right down.
massively.
Yeah,
Did
I've been there.
Did you feel like as well, because this was back in Melbourne, and this is, were you working in a bar when you were in Melbourne as well, or did that start when you came up here?
No, so I started like in gaming rooms actually. So I did a lot of gaming, specialized. I love maths. So I was
Like pokies.
pokies, yeah. So I was like right into that. So then I started at a job in Melbourne, and then started picking up a lot of like credentials in the business. So like money laundering, like specializing in certain things in the gaming industry. Just because I just
How does money laundering work? Because I'm always intrigued by this. You hear like gangsters and stuff always getting done for money laundering.
I don't know if we should talk about this, but there is a lot to do with like, especially gambling is obviously one of the main things that people wash their money through. But yeah, specializing in basically how to pick that up and flagging it when you need to flag it and doing it within reason too. Because I remember like part of the thing is like you've got to tell the authorities when something comes up. And I'm like going, man, if there's this guy who's like 6'6", tattooed up like anything, and he's got like bikey stuff on, not picking out bikies, but I'm not going to tell him that he has to leave the venue or anything like that. I'm like, mate, just go about your stuff as long as you don't harm me. But yeah, there's this whole other thing to it as well of like picking up on that. And there was a spot that I was working out in Melbourne that was very, very big for, a lot of money laundering and a lot of bikey gangs around the area. And it was very interesting. Like, and then, from that, like I learned to deal with money and stuff like that, and how it comes in, how it goes out, and tracking things and where it goes and where it doesn't go.
But it comes back to like your direct friends and your environment stuff. Do you reckon this was like a mental strain as well because you're dealing with that kind of stuff where you've got
for sure
like criminals coming in and laundering money through where you're working?
For sure. I think the big the big thing like that changed with me when in that industry is like I still never forget it because I literally just walked out. But basically, you see people lose buckloads of money. Like, some people just don't understand what goes through in there, and I hate it. Like, I hate the industry, and I would never go back. But like, I'd be blamed for people losing tens of thousands of dollars. They'd lose their wives or their houses or their cars, and because I'm there working, I'm the point of contact that gets for so long. Like, you just get abused. Like, you think like drunk people abusing you is bad. Like, when people know what they're doing, no alcohol in them, and they've lost everything. Like, that's when you see people at the darkest points in their life. And I've seen it happen too many times, and I've been abused so many times that I'm like, I literally can't do this anymore. I had a mental breakdown. I think I took like 4 weeks off of work, and then I literally came back and said, I can't come back in because I literally can't deal with people anymore. And it was like a big turning point in my life, obviously being in hospitality. And then I went into managing cafes. But yeah, it was pretty hectic.
What was the most you ever saw someone lose?
I don't know if I'm supposed to say, but like tens and tens of thousands.
In like over a course of a week? A day?
Yeah. I've seen lots of money go in and out of machines. Like it's so like crazy because if you're not into it, you don't understand. But there was just, I don't know how much I'm meant to say in this area, but like the government gets paid really well from pokie machines. That's why they still exist.
Yeah. It's such a vicious. You see people there, and they're just glued.
It ruins people's lives. And it's so hard to be like, if you have an addictive personality, if you're in those poker machines or any sort of gambling, now it's so easy on your phone, like to bet. And like if you're watching the footy or you're watching something, it's just like betting ads flat out. Now they've like changed it to say like you're always going to lose, basically. Yeah, you do. Like the one chance that you win is nowhere near closer than how many times you lose. But yeah, it's very interesting.
I guess it's like anything, the more research and you can kind of, I guess the only way you can kind of help your chances of winning is if you're betting on something that you actually follow and you can kind of analyze and track.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Or just say, for example, like fighting or horse racing or something like that. If you've actually been in it for 10 years and you go, okay, this guy's fighting this guy. He's got a record of this. He's a striker. This guy's a wrestler. He's probably going to like, you can
I'll
help
put it
your,
this way,
you can
it's
help your
like,
chances, but like
if you
slot
thought
machine.
about like racing downhill, like, right? If you were betting people, like, what happens if they crash on the first corner?
Yeah, I understand that, but I think my chances of being able to pick a good downhill racer to get the win is going to be more likely than you going in and saying.
Oh, the likelihood of you winning is a little bit more.
That's what I mean.
But the one time you lose
exactly. Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Because then you get confident.
Yeah.
Because then you think you're ahead.
You overdo it.
And you're like, oh, I definitely know they're going to win this one. Or you think they're going to win this one and then they lose.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Oh, trust me, I'm with you, man. I remember I'd tell people, because I had some friends that were betting, and they're like, oh, why don't you put a bet on? I was like, oh, I don't have enough money to bet. I don't make enough money to bet.
Yeah.
And they were like, at the time, I was making a lot more than what the person was that was betting, but that was my mentality. Like, I don't have.
Can't lose it.
Well,
you can't afford to lose it because you've got other priorities that you want to.
Just like bet on yourself, man.
Yeah.
You put money. Okay.
That's the only way you win.
Yeah.
Only way you win.
I
Bet on yourself and then use that money that you want to bet on something to benefit your physical health, mental health, and just win in life in general. Like take the control instead of giving it away. Like that's, you're looking for something external to control, whether like, how about you just go in for a second and think about it? Like it's, yeah.
You're trying to create a feeling, I guess, and it's that dopamine hit of, okay, you've just won $100. It's like that, oh shit. And you want that dopamine hit. I'm like, go jump in the ocean in a winter's day. Like that will get you going.
Yeah, that will get you real going.
And that'll make you feel good and it costs nothing.
Yeah.
And then use that money that you would have spent the $100 in, put it into like an account you can't touch that like makes a bit of interest, or like maybe invest in something that like looks like it's on the way up. Like so many other things. Like it's always crazy when you see people that they buy cigarettes, they go to the pokies, they gamble or whatever, and then they're just like, I've got no money.
Yeah.
Like, man, and that's like the whole thing. It's like I can't afford to live that lifestyle.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just
taxing on every single level, like your money going out, your mental health going out, your physical body falling apart. But I feel like the cool thing about that whole thing is like if I'd never did it, I would never have learned like the real dark side of, I guess.
Yeah, you saw it firsthand.
Yeah, I've seen shit. Like I've seen people, I've seen how it changes lives. I've seen families fall apart. I've seen people lose houses and cars. Like I've seen it all happen, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't interest me. Like it really does not interest me. But to be able to see that, as bad as it is, like I was there witnessing things happening and obviously trying to avoid it, because like you try to intervene as much as you can to try to help them out of the RSG, so responsible serving gambling. So, but you just, I feel like if you take that actually as a lesson, like I could see in myself, like with that, like drinking and like partying all the time, of like when I was at that point, like I could see that in them. Like they're just doing it to get away from escaping something else, like without facing whatever it may be. They might have had a hard day at work or whatever it is. And it's like sort of like a turning point for me. It's like I don't drink anywhere near as much as what I used to drink, like a lot. I used to drink a lot. But like it's really cool to then see if you continue down that path where it's gonna hit a point where it's almost like you can't come back from that. And I never wanted to get to that point.
What would you tell someone either in that kind of gambling, so it doesn't really matter. It's like, what would you tell someone that has a crutch, like it has something they lean on when times get tough? Like what would you tell them the best ways to kind of like deal with that and come out of something like that?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's the recognition, like being consciously aware of that's happening. That's the hardest point, because like if you don't have the right friendship group that are going to pull you up on that shit, you're not going to know. It's so hard for you to understand that if you can't see it, because like as bad as it is, like you know that this is happening, but you consciously can't articulate that's the way it's going to go. So like I don't know, it'd be like try to catch yourself out if you are going down that route. But if you apply that outside of that world, it's like if you feel like you're in a point in your life where you have to lean on something that's, whether it be alcohol or some sort of really bad addiction, how about you like tap back into nature for a second? Like whether it go, as you said, jump in the water, or I love swimming around the water with my camera. So that's one of the things that I always do. Like if I've had a hard day, camera's in my hand, I'm in the water and I'm swimming around. And it's like, a full reset. It's like I'm getting back into touch with the frequency of the earth, and I'm tapping back into my inner self instead of trying to go out to then get back, and it doesn't work that way.
I guess it's knowing your triggers,
Mm.
your things that will like set you straight and actually, okay, I'm not having a good day. I need the reset. This is what I know resets me. Let's go and do that.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think for anyone that's struggling or has a crutch or has like they think they have these problems in their life, I think a good thing, and it can be, I guess some people could see it as a negative, but look at all the problems in your life and then think that you're the cause of every single one of those problems, and then start to work out how, because it's like so many people justify what's happening or why they said something or why their girlfriend doesn't want to be with them or why they're fighting with their parents. And it's like, look at that as like they're right. And obviously this might not work in all cases, but look at it as, okay, maybe I'm the issue. I'm the problem. I need to change it. And then that's when you kind of start looking at it in a different perspective. Like, because like you said, if you're looking at from being on the merry-go-round and you keep going around and around, you're never going to get off it. If you hop off and look at it from like standing and look at it, you go, oh, that's what's happening. But a lot of people won't pull themselves out of that. They'll only look at it like first person view. It's like step out and look at, okay, maybe my girlfriend was right. Let's have a look at like why she thinks this and why she might be right, or why my mum's right, or why my dad's right. And then view it from that angle, and then that could change your whole perspective on the situation and make you come out of that and be like, okay, this is how they see it, and I can see that now. And then you can have an actual discussion about that instead of throwing hate or anger at each other constantly.
Yeah, for sure. It's like even if you don't think it's right, even if you don't think it's true, it's like there's some truth in that, whether you like it or not. It's like, but if you can find that truth in the stuff that you don't like, that's when you start to really win. Like that's when you start to pick up. I like call it like leveling up in a game. It's like life's a game. It's like find all the little gems that you can everywhere you're around you can. So like it's like when somebody doesn't, like if someone has a different belief to you, right? And then they're like trying to talk to you. And if you find this point of view, like you have to jump in to try to tell them that they're wrong, or I just don't understand that, because it's like they've got a belief because of the way that they're brought up, and there's so many fundamentals that go into it. But you could probably learn something from their belief system that like, oh, that could be cool, or like maybe I'm not as open-minded as I thought I was. Maybe that's something, because like if somebody believes in like any sort of religion or whatever it is, I'm all for it. Like whatever you believe in is your beliefs. As long as you don't try to put that onto me, I will support you 110%, even if I don't know you. But then if you try to push stuff on me, I'm like, well,
yeah, why are you doing that?
Yeah, why are you doing that?
But it is
Back off.
It is like you're saying. It's just if you actually stop and listen to people without the intent to cut them off and be like, oh, but I feel like this and oh, I feel like that. And honestly, doing this podcast has made me more like, it's definitely made me a better listener, and it's made me kind of not want to jump in and kind of, because sometimes someone will tell you something and you don't do it intentionally, but you almost like cut them off and then one up them with your story, which is similar but better in a way in your own head. And then you've got this constant like back and forth where instead of just listening to the person and what they've actually achieved and done, being like, that's really cool, and ask more questions in it, you kind of go, oh yeah, well, I went to Greece as well last year, but we went on a bigger yacht and it was cool because I caught a marlin. And then you kind of like belittle their story because you want to be like the bigger, better person. Like your ego comes out and starts driving the conversation. So I think it's like if you can just sit there and listen and just see what the person has to say, you might not even have like your opinion of what the conversation is changed, but at least you'll get a better understanding of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we don't do enough of ever. And it's something I definitely didn't do as much of until I started doing a podcast where that's kind of the whole thing, is to tell the other person's story.
Yeah. No, I think it's really interesting you touch on that. It's like this whole thing of like the ego needs to be better than the other person, or my story is better than your person. If you can really separate that ability to listen to somebody like deeply, like truly actually listen to what they're saying, first of all, they're probably going to feel way better about themselves because you've actually given them some time. And like whether friends, your family, or a relationship with a girl or a male, whatever it is, it's like if you can stop and listen, that will go so far. Like, You might not even have to say anything. You just have to listen, and you could completely change their day. Like that's pretty cool. Like, but if you try to then go one up somebody all the time, what does that look like in life? Like where are you going to get yourself? Because now you think that you're better than everybody else around you. But if you can drop yourself back and be like, I don't need to be right, I don't need to be better, I can just be me. And once you're okay with you and being who you are, you don't need to justify that to somebody else. So you don't need to try to like even if you went on a bigger boat over in Greece,
Doesn't matter.
they don't need to know that.
Yeah. And you'll learn way
Yeah.
more in that state.
Yeah, maybe the smaller boat was better than the big boat. You don't know. Who knows?
Maybe their flathead they caught was tastier as well.
Yeah, maybe they got a bigger mile and you didn't even listen to the story.
Yeah, cut them off too soon.
Yeah.
But how often does that happen? Like I'm a big believer sometimes it's just better to observe a situation, and whether like you're directly in the conversation, but you see how other people act, and I think you can learn a lot from that. Like coming into a room where there's a heap of people and just not saying that much, but just observing the kind of dynamic of everyone in it, and you kind of can work out how people are acting and why they're acting, and kind of once you feel comfortable, then maybe kind of tap into what you want to tap into, but not just coming in like guns blazing and like you said, letting your ego kind of drive the conversation and who you are as a person, but kind of like observing, understanding, and then going into it. Because I think so many of us not jump to conclusions, but jump into stuff when they're not kind of, they're unsure of the situation. I think people when they're unsure about something, they act quite differently than how they actually would, like how you said, like be yourself. But if people don't feel comfortable and they come into a situation they don't feel themselves, they're not going to come across that way. And I think a lot of people, they're like, not that we're really bad people, but they get put in a situation where they're like, I don't know how to be right now. So then they act poorly, and then that's portrayed in a certain way. And then I think it just that can spiral out in the wrong direction. Have you seen that before, where people have kind of come into a situation and they're not bad people, but they act like a bit of a dick, but it's probably just because they couldn't read the situation properly?
Yeah, I think there's literally you could unravel this for fucking days, but like, I feel like at the core of it, it's like, can you be present first of all? Like, is that something you can do without having to say anything? Can you, like, I think one of the biggest learning points with me is like I feel like with you, right, we could sit down and not say anything for hours and be comfortable in the room together. But like, if you sit down and you don't feel like you can't be comfortable with not talking, you need to probably work on something with that. What's going on deep inside of that? Because end of the day, like, silence is like your biggest teacher, right? So like, you sitting there in silence with somebody else and just being present with their energy and not having to do anything external of telling a story or paying some positive or negative, whatever it was. It's like, how about you just stop, be present, and just sit with that for a second? Like, if they need to talk, they will talk. If they don't need to talk, or if you ever sat in a car, like you probably did a lot of traveling, like if you ever sat in a car with somebody on a road trip and feel like you just need to talk flat out, or you've sat in the car with somebody who just needs to talk flat out and they just don't stop. It's because like there's something deeper inside of them that they have to validate something going on all the time, and they feel uncomfortable. Because I'll never forget, like when I was on the start of my journey of like trying to mentally get better, it's like one of my housemates came home one day. He's like, I was sitting on the couch, TV was off, there was nothing happening. I was just sitting there, and he walks in and goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "I'm just chilling." He goes, "What are you to?" I was like, "Yeah, just in silence." He goes, and to this day, I will never forget this. He goes, "I could never sit like still with myself because of the internal chatter that would happen and the shit that would go through my brain." And like,
That's sad, because that's the same as, when you said you turned to alcohol when you felt that way. It's like turning to noise, turning to TV, turning to porn, turning to certain toxic people, turning to drugs. Like that's all based off how your mind, like what your mind is saying to you.
yeah,
So if you can become comfortable with that, you can clear all that shit out. And you're like, I don't really need much. I need
Yeah.
some food, water, shelter, pretty good.
yeah.
And then I can be with myself. And it's so nice to be comfortable with your own thoughts. Like it's
Oh, it's so sick. It's like I think it's the coolest thing going around, just putting it out there. But like, even like meditation, right? Like I do a lot of meditation, and like I've got to a point now where I can meditate to the point where nothing comes up.
Mm.
Now, I'm probably one person you could probably say has ADHD, or I've been told that anyway. But for somebody like that who can get to their mind to, like, I'm normally pretty active as well, like in the creative world as well, like my head just runs at a million miles an hour. But when I go into that meditation state, I can drop to a point where nothing's going on. Like, it's just silence. Like, that's cool. Like, I feel like that's where I can regenerate and like really relax. And like sometimes, I don't know, I used to like go to bed, my mind's on. It still happens every now and then. Like, it's not perfect, but like when you go to bed and your mind's running a million miles an hour,
It's torture.
I'll just take myself away from that situation.
You can
I'll
pull
sit with
yourself
my
out.
thought and I'll just wait. And it might take 15 minutes, it might take an hour, it could take longer. But I need to get to a point where I'm chill, my chatter stops because it's all unresolved.
What are the tools you use to get there?
Like different meditations, like I'm doing at the moment, or the last couple of years, I've been doing a self-development course, and we just have a lot of tools that are in that really goes through, depending on what it is that you need to work with at that time. Like, as I said, it's not perfect. Like one day you might have one issue on this, but it's like working and being aware of what's coming up for you in that situation, whether it's you getting really angry at somebody or something happening at work or whatever it may be. You feel like the world's against you. It's like, okay, well, what's the world reflecting to me at this point? And what do I need to work with right now to bring myself back to the divine, back to the middle ground? Like, how do I reach that point?
Are you doing any, like, are you kind of saying anything in your head? Are you trying to focus on like the black? Are you trying to like, is there something you kind of, because I know there's different meditations where you can either like say like a hymn or something, or are you just trying to focus on like one thing in particular, your breath, or is there like what draws you back?
I've got a lot of different tools. Like I've got chakra cards, so I sometimes like sound out chakra cards to really drop back into full resonance, and then I'll have like guided meditations as well, depending on what it is, and takes me to a whole different world. And then sometimes I just don't do anything. That also works. And like for me as well, like being in the water with my camera is like getting back into a point of just complete. Like people ask me, like, it's so crazy. People go to me, oh, why do you always swim around? Why don't you go surfing? Or why? It's like, I don't think you understand the point. Like where I get to when I'm in the water is so far away from anything else that I could ever achieve. Like I have so much fun. I can get to such a deep meditative state when I'm in the water that it literally doesn't compare to if I was surfing or getting stressed out with someone dropping in on me or anything like that. So
Let's dive more into this, because we kind of touched on the photography thing in Oktoberfest, and then you've obviously gone down this direction of becoming a photographer, videographer. You do both, don't you?
Yeah.
You both?
Yeah.
So what was the journey like after Oktoberfest? Drunk photographer, can't do it. You grab the camera, awesome photography. What led on after that?
Yeah, so I came back and then initially picked back up the job that I had in Surface. I was working in a cafe, managing a cafe. And there was a photographer in there at the time who worked for News Corp. And I was like, mate, I need to know what camera I need to buy because shit's about to get real. And he's like, oh, what happened? And I told him the story, and he was telling me all this stuff to get. And I was like, oh. He goes, oh, actually, I might be selling one if you want it. I was like, yep. He goes, oh, do you want to know what it is? I said, no. I'll have it, whatever it is. And then, yeah, I sort of just got it. And then I started taking photos, and I outgrew that camera pretty quick. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, we're on here.
This is what we want to do.
We're bloody on here. And then, yeah, I went and brought the camera that I got there, the A7S. No, A7 III. It was like the newest, sickest camera at the time. I was like, fuck it. Let's go. Let's get it. And I remember in the first year, I broke it. So in the first year of me buying this camera, they've got like a maximum of like 300,000 photos you can take on it. I took like 340,000 and broke the camera.
How'd you break? Like, what breaks on that?
Like the shutters
sensor.
inside it, and I broke the lens as well. And they're like, what are you doing with this thing? I said,
Taking photos,
Well,
man.
I'm taking about 400 photos at sunrise, 400 photos at sunset, and then probably 400 throughout the day, every single day. They're like, whoa, that's insane. Like, we've never had anybody break a camera like this before. And then, yeah, sort of things just.
Did they fix it for you? Or
Yeah. I got it. It was in warranty because it's not meant to break in that time. So they had it covered by warranty. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. I'm going to do this again.
It's like the guy's back again.
Yeah. So yeah, I got that and sort of got right into photos for the longest period of time. And then one of my mates, Adrian Bullock, he took me on board because I was really interested in water photography. And he's like, oh, do you want to come out and you can use my housing if you want? I was like, fuck yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Here I am rocking up with my little GoPro, going, oh, just taking photos of my GoPro down at Currumbin. And he's like, oh, do you want to have a go at mine? And I was like, yes, please. Yeah. So I took a couple of photos and I got out of the water and I said, oh, I need to go buy a water housing now. So went and brought one of them and yeah, I never really looked back. So.
Are you ever nervous when you're out in the surf to like lose the camera, or is it attached to you in some way, or are you just holding it?
I'll be honest with you, I'm never nervous about losing a camera. That sounds really weird.
Is it attached to you in any way?
Not often, is it? It's
it.
not really often attached to me. Everybody's probably fucking cringing, but
You
I get told off all the time. Like there's other photographers that go, why is that not strapped to you? I'm like, I don't know. It just gets in the way.
Does it float? No.
It floats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I've also swum out in a really big swell before where I don't have it tied to me and I'm like, they're like, oh, it's just going to get ripped out of your hand. I'm like, I'll tell you what, if somebody can rip this out of my hand, they can have it. Like it's generally like I'm holding onto that thing for dear life, flat out. Doesn't really like play through the processes, but like if I'm swimming around, like maybe one day I'll have this feeling where I'm like, I need to attach this to myself, then yeah, I will attach it through like a wrist strap and then it'll run to the camera. But then it just gets in the way, so I don't like it.
Live it on the edge.
Yeah, living on the edge.
What's the biggest swell you've gone out in, and what's that like, knowing that you're kind of a bit in the danger zone of it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm that good at it yet because there's like other people who swim out in way bigger stuff than I do. But I've been a couple of cyclone swells at Kira and stuff, like Snapper, Kira going out when it's like 8 foot probably plus. I've definitely been caught out before in probably 10 foot at Kira.
What's the go-to? If you see a bomb coming, do you just swim down? Just hope
for the best.
Yeah,
because it's usually like a lot of people don't understand, but you're sitting in the strike zone 24/7. Like it gets hectic, and if a bomb's coming and it breaks out further than where you are, everybody who's sitting out wide, get over it. You don't. You get munched.
Well, that's what I mean. Do you just dive down? And
you just got to hope that you can get down deep enough that you can get underneath it.
You won't get picked up by it and send.
Yeah, and you got to. That's the other thing. It's like the breath control. You got to be good with your breath because you can't like be too amped up that you're going to get smashed. It's like it's happening. Just chill, and just go with the flow. And yeah,
I love that about surfing. The whole concept of getting wiped out by a wave can just relate so well to life. It's like when shit goes wrong, when you get absolutely yard sailed, just be calm.
Yeah,
just relax.
Yeah.
Don't stress out. It's going to be over soon. You'll pop back up, paddle back out, go catch another wave. Like, just that concept and that mentality relates so well to life. And then the next wave you could catch might be the best one of your life.
100%. It's like, as well, it all comes down to like your mental mind. Like if you're so amped up and you are so peaking, it's just shit's gonna hit you way harder than if you're sitting back down here. It's like if you have too much coffee. I've done this before. I've had too much coffee and I've got in the water. I just can't get my heart rate down. It just won't go down. Like obviously coffees are probably not that good for you, but
drink Athletic Greens.
Yeah.
Little plug.
Plug that in. I really like it. But no, it's one of those things. I've jumped in the water before where I've had too much coffee on a big day and I've just things just went sideways real quickly. I just caught out, and it's like you can never catch back up. It's like it's too late. You're out the back, you're getting smashed, you can't drop your heart rate out. So you're panicking flat out. And it's like, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That feeling when your heart rate spikes and you see more waves coming and you're like, I'm in the wrong spot right now.
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong sport. I'm in the wrong ocean. I'm in the wrong everything. But like you said, you just got to be calm and get through it.
I had like recently, I had probably the scariest, the one happened when I was over in New Zealand, like a month or so ago. And I was at, I won't say the location, but I was at this spot that's like pretty hectic. Like it was massive swell. And I went out through this little cave and I popped out and I was like, whew, it's pretty big out here, eh? Like this is big. And there's like this little bay and then there's like a massive rock down the beach. And I was sitting right in the middle and then I sort of stopped. And then everything sort of, the sweep stopped. And when that usually happens is like it's the slack tide and shit's about to get real. And I reckon within 15 minutes, it just went bang. And because I just couldn't get in fast enough, it started hooking towards this rock. And I was like, holy shit. I literally can't swim against this. So I was flying towards this rock and I'm going, if I get washed up on the front of this, I don't actually know what I'm going to do yet. And it was the first time where I'm like, I wasn't panicking because I was like, I'm going to need every bit of energy if I get smacked on this rock because I'm just going to be on this cliff face with this
Waves just coming
waves
in.
just smacking you. And I was like, oh my God, my camera. The one thing that was going through my head. I had the Hasselblad at the time and I was like going, I don't want to hurt my camera. What am I going to do with the camera? I'm thinking camera first, me second, which is probably not the best way to think. But then like I was out there with Takesh and he saw me and he thought I was waving, throwing the shuckers. I was like, nah, bro, come out. Like I'm not going to be able to get in. Like I knew that there was no way I was going to get in. So he paddles back out and he like grab hold of the leash and he starts paddling across. And we're like probably 3 or 4 meters away from this rock. Like it's literally right there. If one more wave had to come, we would have been on top of both of us would have been on top of the rock. And I was kicking flat out. He was paddling and we sort of just got around it. And then it goes quiet right behind the rock. And we sort of looked at each other, didn't really say anything. And then we got to the beach and we both went, holy fuck. Like that was insane. Like, what was that? And I was like, whoa, I just got humbled so quickly. Even though I knew it was probably going to happen, it happened. And whoa,
It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot. But yeah.
Dude, I know the feeling. I got pushed down from Rainbow all the way down to Kira. And there's like the rock wall behind Kira.
Yeah.
I got pushed down. I was like, when you're like, oh, I'm all good. I'll just paddle in or whatever. And then you get kind of like swept up in it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, this is not okay now. And you're like kind of still like, no, we're good. And then you're like, no, I'm fully no control. The ocean can do what it wants with me right now. And it's that feeling of like, you go from, oh, I'm all good to, nah, this could go bad. And I thought I was going to get thrown to the rocks. Luckily, I just went around and paddled out of it. But like that feeling of just like, I don't know what I'm going to do if this happens. Like obviously you got to kind of think on the fly. But oh man,
I think it's a beautiful thing though. It's like, that humbling experience of like nature's teaching you. Like I feel like the ocean has been my biggest teacher and like forever. And like those situations, it's like, can you surrender to this situation right now or are you going to try to fight it? Because I tell you right now, in those situations with massive waves or things going wrong in the water, unfortunately nature's way more stronger than you are and you're not going to be able to do shit about it.
Yeah, you're not in a good place,
Yeah.
Oh, man. What's your most memorable moment out in the water shooting?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a really good question. I don't know how to answer that one. I've had too many good
What's
times.
the first one that comes to mind?
Oh, New Zealand was pretty cool.
What was it?
I just loved the landscape. It was a bit different. Noosa. When the first time I swam out at Noosa at Tea Tree up there, I was like, this is so fucking sick. Like, and then if I was to say there's one beach that really I fell in love with straight away, would have to be Bells Beach. The first time I went out there, I would never forget last time, this year when I was down there, I was in the water at Bells and there wasn't really much going on. And Sally Fitz pedals up to me and we were sitting there chatting away and she goes, oh, what are you taking photos of? Because there's no one over there. And she's like, Kelly Slater's sitting up the lineup. And I was like, oh, the rock face is pretty sick, eh? And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, the fucking rock face. I'm just frothing out on the rock face. She's like, you've got Kelly Slater up there and you're taking photos of the rock face at Val's Beach. I was like, yeah, but it looks pretty cool. Then she turns around and goes, oh, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
Yeah, why did that? Yeah, why, like, that's the thing. If you think something's cool, it doesn't matter what someone else thinks
No.
of it. If you're like, this is.
I'd just go off on little tangents. I'd just be like, oh, that's really cool. And I'd be focusing on this one little section in front of me for like 45 minutes and people are getting barreled in front of me and I don't care.
You're not phased.
No.
Because you were down there for the WSL, weren't you?
Yeah.
How often do you go shoot at something like that?
Yeah, not so much. Like it's pretty hard yakka in that world. I sort of went down there because it's my favorite spot to be. So I really wanted to go there and work with a few people. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. It's just competition surfing. Sometimes not necessarily what I like to do, and like it's just I wouldn't say it's boring, but it's
Is
like
it a bit of a weird world? Like there's a lot of competition in not just like obviously the competing in as a surfer, but as a photographer and being out in the water and getting in someone's shot or being in the way, or is that a factor that comes into play?
not so much. Like not in my head, it doesn't. It probably does, but if I'm doing it, like the thing that it comes down to is like, what story am I telling? First of all, like, is there going to be a story to tell here, or is there not going to be a story to tell? If I can't find that, then it's really hard for me to get motivated. And I mean like anything. Like if I just get told this is it, and I'm not really in it. It's like my heart has to be 100% into it. Like it's really, really cool to jump in and tell like a story about somebody or a situation or an event that's happening. What's the deeper meaning behind this, and how can we articulate that across the audience and get somebody to feel what it's like to be here? Or
It's creating an emotion, isn't it?
yeah. I think that's like, I think we tapped on this yesterday in our little chats. It's like people don't sort of understand the back end of like, I think Drive to Survive does a pretty good like sort of on it, where they sort of tap into the behind the scenes of things and like what it actually takes to get to the track. What is the back end thing that motivates you to be to where you are? Like, I'd love to do one with you. It's actually, I might as well tell you now. Like, I think it'd be sick to like tell a story behind you about how you do what you do. Like, I think it'd be, that to me motivates me, because I'm like, fuck yeah, if we can get that across, it's like, imagine how cool that would be. Like if somebody can just have a little glimpse into like what your mindset is to get to where you are. Where it's like the smallest little things of like, what do you eat, or what mindset is it going into, what challenges you, and yeah.
Yeah, I think like you touched on that, like creating emotion through a story is so powerful, and you can't really quantify the effect that has on the different people and the amount like a good story, like a really good positive uplifting story can change someone's life forever, and it can give them the tools within themselves to be like, oh, I can do it. I can do that. He did that, and this is how he did it. And it's like that. Like you can't really put a value on it sometimes of how far that can go. And like you said, that's similar to like what you said, like me and Sam Purdy when we were filming stuff. It's like I want to tell a story. I want to inspire people to do more or be more, or like change their life or step out of their comfort zone. And obviously writing is that kind of platform that I can use to do that. But there's so much more that goes into being in it, like how you train, how you eat, how you sleep, how you think, what you read, who you surround yourself with. Like that's all part of that story that create who you are. And like you said, if you can capture that and then get that across to people, I think that's, it's such an art as well to be able to do it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well, because like I've also been taking photos for quite a long time, but I only recently within the last eight so months, I really started to get right into the video making side of things. And it's only because like I was like, I don't know what it is, but I think it's missing something. Like I still love taking a photo and telling stories with the photo, but I feel like with movies, I can't remember there was on a podcast I listened to it anyway, it was a quote that basically said that a picture can tell 1,000 words. So imagine what a movie could do. I was like, fuck, you're right.
It's a lot of pictures.
There's a lot of pictures. Like if you think about you're shooting like 25 frames a second, right? That's 25 frames a second. So like imagine that's a lot of information going through. So if I can get somebody to feel on a deeper level and just tap into that in a positive way too, not like a controlling way, because some movies, like they send you down these narratives and you're like so invested. Like it's like you listen to people who are watching reality TV shows and stuff, like they're so invested in other people's lives. Like I don't want that. I want to tell a story where you're invested to change your life and you get motivated off that, not caught up in the drama or the shit that goes along with it. It's like, how can we tell an authentic story to motivate you to do something outside of your comfort zone that maybe you've been putting off?
That's that whole thing, that mentality to be like, oh, they did it, why can't I?
Yeah.
And then they show you how they did it. And it's like all the information you've ever needed to do the thing you want to do is right there.
Yeah.
You just have to tap into it and then actually then implement that in your own life. But it's right there.
Yeah. It's like a gap of like, I know you kind of do this because I follow a lot of stuff that you do, but like the teaching the younger generations, like what it actually takes to do stuff like young kids in the sport, right? It's like, how do you show them something that they can do that maybe they didn't know that they could do? It's like, it's not that inaccessible. Like you could be on the greatest scale, right? It's not like they're doing crazy amounts of like different stuff. It's just they're doing the right stuff. How do you implement that into what you're doing?
My biggest thing as well with dealing with younger like kids and athletes, my biggest thing that I've noticed that is the easiest thing to do as well is just have belief in what they're doing. Like that will outweigh any like the fitness, the bike skill, the whatever it is. If you believe in someone and then that belief then transforms into themselves, like that's pretty insane. Like how far that can push someone.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
I can hear a rake.
Yeah, something's going on out there.
I was like, I hear something. I was like, what's going on? But if you, believing in someone, and I think the thing that separate really good athletes from mediocre athletes is the belief they have in themselves. And you'll see time and time again, someone will finally win a championship, or they'll finally win a game, or they'll do something, and like they won't get fitter, they won't get smarter, they won't get stronger, and then the next game they'll show up again, and then they'll show up again. And it's like because they believe believe that what they've been training and trying so hard to do for so long is actually obtainable. Yeah. And when they attain it, they can keep doing it. And
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
It's such a tricky thing to maintain and hold on to. But once you can grab a hold of it, you just see people take off. And that's the thing I'm trying to like instill in up and coming races. Like you can do this. Yeah. And I think someone that has done it telling you that, it just builds that belief that you can, and then you will.
Yeah. No, it's like with the belief side of things is something I've struggled on, like personally for a long time, like just not believing that you're good enough, and all this stuff stems from like childhood that I've worked on for so long. And I would only say like within the last, I don't know, maybe a year, I'm starting to really grasp that on a deeper level. Like it's so interesting because it's like people will say like, oh, you're really confident in what you do, and you're really, yeah, but if I don't believe it, it doesn't happen. And so that's what you're saying. It's like you can help people believe in themselves. What they can achieve outside of that is just. I'll tell you an interesting one. Did you watch what's that one with the the Williams sisters?
Oh yeah, King Richard.
Yes, like that's a bit excessive, but he believed so hard and he instilled that within them, and they became something that wasn't by mistake. That was by literally crafting and that belief system within themselves to then allow them to achieve anything that's possible. Like without that, like it's really hard to achieve shit.
Well, just people don't have like, it's hard for people to believe in themselves if no one else does. That comes back to the tall poppy syndrome and what we have in Australia, where you'll be like, oh, I want to be this, and then all your friends will be like, you can't be that. Yeah. And like you're grasping onto this barely. Yeah. And then all your friends rip it out of your hands even more. You're like, okay, well, I won't. So like to anyone listening to this right now, like think about one thing in your life that you really, really want to try and do, and then just believe you can.
Just do it.
And then just do it. Yeah. And see what happens. Yeah. Like just see what happens, but just go into it with the belief like, I can write a book. I can lose weight. Yeah. I can do that. Write it down. Yeah. Write it down. And then even the thing that other people don't do, they don't put a date on things. They just say, I want to do something. And I always say one day is code for never. Yeah. So if you say, okay, I want to write a book, or I want to lose weight, or I want to do whatever it is, put a date 3 months in the future, and be like, by this date, I want to have done 50% of what I've said,
Yeah.
or 20% or something. But give yourself a
Yeah, I
date
love
that
that.
you can actually like. Then you've got to work
Bang.
towards that, because otherwise it's just out in the open.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it then. Yeah, I really hate when people say one day. It's like, oh, one day I'll do that. It's like, that's never, man. Like,
You call me out of my bullshit.
Yeah.
I have to write my book.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Or just put a date on it that you can
Yeah.
start at least, and then you're putting work towards
Yeah,
the
I
date.
love it.
But yeah, a lot of people don't do that, and I think it's a really powerful, positive thing you can do. And it comes back to how you had your friend that's like, come to Oktoberfest,
Yeah.
like just step outside of your comfort zone and just do something new.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's so powerful. That's something that I think in the back of my mind has always been like, oh man, the amount of times where I've just been like, I just want to just kind of stop what I'm doing now and kind of just honestly just become a yes man for a year and just see where that would take me. Like how, like my friend Cooper Chapman just went to Bali and I rode past his house and he was just walking in. So I just went down and caught up with him and he's like, oh, I'm going to Bali tomorrow. And he's like, oh, you should come. And like all of my body is saying, get on that plane, because I don't know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that to me seems like that's what life is about.
Yeah.
And I have the ability to be able to do that. Like luckily how I've like set my life up and whatnot. But because of the racing, it's like I can't just I can't do that. But then it's just like you get pulled away with what you feel like every fiber of your being wants to do something that you're kind of questioning at the same time. So it's like I'm still that's for another time. But yeah, that's kind of in the point where it's like just step out and do that stuff and look at your friend pulling you over to do that has then got you to where you are.
Changed my life.
Yeah. From just that thing of like
Crazy.
And you would have never thought that going to Oktoberfest would then result in you becoming a photographer, videographer.
Not a chance. Absolutely. That was not my intention one bit. People are like, oh, you must have, like, yeah, I've done it. Like, I enjoyed it. But there was no way that I thought that that's how it was going to pan out. That's the cool thing. I shouldn't know what's going to come next. And that's like the big thing. And like, if you ever watched the Yes Theory,
no, I haven't.
They're like massive on the tube. And they're basically is they've got their slogans called Seek Uncomfort. And basically they literally they do random things where they'll go up to people in the airport and go, do you want to jump on a plane and come here? They'll pay for everything. The amount of people that won't do it just out of, oh no, I've got to do this or I've got to do this. It's crazy. But then the people who do it, they just go off on these random trips or they push themselves to the limit of just saying yes. Well, why not? Just do it. Whatever happens, happens.
It's so exciting, man. The amount of times where I've ended up in some random place with a bunch of people. I have no idea who they are. And I think it's just to me, that's really living.
Yeah.
Is experiencing new people, new places, new cultures, new ways of being, new food, and not having any plan whatsoever of how I got there or how I'll get out, and just going into it be like, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And let's just go with that. And I feel like I get so much fulfillment and happiness from doing that it's like, well, why can't you? Like, I always just, it's like obviously trying to maintain a relationship with being that kind of person, and also like being able to maintain relationships within families and stuff. But I just, the idea of just being able to travel and then interviewing people, like the podcasting, like that's a goal of mine now, is to travel, be that yes man, and then take those little DJI mics and just interview people in random spots.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I just met someone in Brazil on a hike, chat to them about something to do with
life.
Yeah, life.
Yeah, like this, like I was saying to you before I came on here, it's like, oh, what are we going to talk about? Like, I haven't. This is my first podcast, so I was like, I don't fucking know what I'm going to talk about. And I was like, sort of thinking about. You sent me through a couple of things, and I'm like, fuck it, what about we just go for it? And when you come in here, and you're like, I usually just like to go for it. And look, like we've just gone off on this whole different rant. We're talking about cool stuff that we're both pretty passionate about, and that I feel like that is what life is about. It's like. It should never be like this whole, people go to me like, oh, how do you, like, let's say if I'm doing a photo or something like that, and if I'm doing a shoot with somebody, they go, oh, do you have like a mood board or something? I'm like, no, my mood board's up here and it will happen when it's meant to happen.
Yeah.
And if it's not meant to happen, it won't happen. It's like, I believe in that so much that all my photos come when I'm tapped in on this deeper level of just believing that the process will come on. Like even when it comes down to like a corporate job, I'll have quite a bit of structure to that because it's obviously a little bit more intense. But to the majority of things, sometimes I just wing it. I can literally just go, actually, I need to pivot right now, and we're going to run with this because this is really cool. It's the same as like if you're traveling and just say yes, or you meet some random person. That one person in Brazil that you're doing a podcast with could completely change the perspective on your life in an instant. Like, and that's
life. And that's such a cool thing. It's funny because the amount of people that I'll be like, hey, we should do a podcast. And this is after meeting them and chatting to them for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours, like just randomly meeting someone. But like, oh, we should do a podcast. And they're like, what are we going to talk about? And I was like, I don't know. We've just been talking for the last 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I think people underestimate how interesting they actually are and the stories they have to tell.
yeah,
And I like this format of kind of like in my head, I thought of things to ask you. So there's stuff there. But I think and I've done it in the past where I've written down questions and then I feel so invested in the questions that I don't you'll say something instead of going off on that. And like people always like, oh, sorry, we're off on a bit of a tangent. I'm like, perfect. This doesn't need to be structured. Like who cares? Like just if you feel like saying something, that's what you should say. And I feel like when people have so much like question answer, it's kind of dry.
yeah,
And you're always trying to like pull back to something where if you just let it flow in the direction that it should go, I think people enjoy that kind of conversation because it's more like what we're talking about now is what we'd be talking about anyway.
yeah,
And it's not like, okay, Devin, what did you do here? And it's like, it's very dry. And I don't think people engage with that properly where I think people just want to feel like they know you.
yeah. Authenticity. It's like the deeper level of like we're becoming in an age right now where we're moving so into technology and like technology is really taking over. Like AI and shit's really getting fucking real, right? But the one thing that's never going to be able to be replaced is authenticity. Like we move so far away from like you see the brands, like big brands around the world now really tapping into this more and more. But it's like, how do we be relatable? Like how can we be relatable to the end consumer or the end audience? And what does that look like? Like how does that, like if someone's listening to this, right? I want to be able to feel like they know me or you and on not just like this has happened here, this happened here, this is how it happened. This is just how I am. It's like if you were to meet me down the street, it'd be the same. Like this is how I conduct myself on a day-to-day basis. Like that's real. That is where we need to head, I feel like in the future. Is like how about we get more real and stop trying to be this perfect human being that it's never going to exist. Like you look on social media has really started to shape people's life and like I have to look this way or I have to be like this and I have to do that. How about you just be you? How about you be comfortable with that, start off with and then move from there?
I think it's a lot of people are scared to be themselves because their authentic self might not be viewed by like likes or views or all these other things as highly. And then that's kind of narrating their life choices now because they're living through what other people think they should do or how they should look. Or like, for example, I post a photo of something I think is really cool. No one likes it. Like whether it's like I'm shooting photography and I'm like, oh, this is sick. I'm really into this. So I post it and then no one likes it. So then I post something that is something that I'm like, whatever, this or that, and heaps of people like it. So I'm like, you're kind of making me well, you're not making me, but I'm making myself, but it's through the reaction I'm getting from other people. But then it comes back to being a creative person shouldn't matter how it's received.
Yeah.
Like painting a picture, you shouldn't paint a picture of how you think people will like that or whatever. It's like you should paint a picture because this is how I want to paint a picture.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter if people like it or don't like it. It's just like, this is what I created. But we get so put into this, okay, you've got to look like that because that'll get you the most this. And if you post it now, that'll get the most that. And it's like our whole lives are so determined on like views, money and likes. And we get so driven down this lane of, okay, do this and you'll get this. Do that and you'll get, and at the end of the day, like who cares?
But it's not necessarily true either.
Oh, it's a story you tell yourself.
Like the Casey Neistat, right, for example, is like the most authentic fucking vlogger of all history. And he's like the GOAT. And he's probably made more money than most people. Same with Mr. Beast, right? These people are not this structured. They just do shit. And they're just...
Yeah, but I still think because I know a couple of YouTubers and they've got like million subs and stuff. And I know even on my small scale, you start to kind of live through what you think other people will want. And I know some people are like authentic and do what they want, but there's a part of your brain that's thinking, if I do this, this will be good because people will be like it plays a role.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it's very easily, especially in the vlogging world, to get caught up in what am I doing for me and what am I doing for the viewers, and how is that affecting my normal life?
Yeah.
And that's something that I've dabbled with very, like, there's certain things where I'm like, oh, this would be really cool to do and then film. And I think it would make your life cool because you're always doing cool stuff because you want people to see you doing cool stuff. But am I doing this for me or am I doing this for the viewers?
Yeah.
And that's a fine line that you've kind of got to dance on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is like one of the things that I never forget. I've got told it's like if you go to Instagram, for example, it's like if you have like I remember in school, right? I never did any public speaking. I flat out refused it, hated it, right? But if I was to like have 100 people watch a video of mine, I would never talk in front of 100 people in my life.
Mm.
But like if 20 people care about what you do, that's fucking a lot of people. It's a lot of people. That's pretty cool. That's a good spot to start. It's like you can then look and place judgment on other people and be like, I wish I was them, or I wish I had. It's like they also didn't just get there by mistake either. Like they've obviously worked on something and they've just done their thing. Like if you do your thing, but if you try to copy somebody else, you're just gonna probably not get there anyway because it's already been fulfilled by that person.
Mm.
So it's like just be true to yourself, and like there's obviously some sort of element with the social media world and obviously the content you create that obviously comes into it. It's not like it's oblivious and it's just like be your authentic self and don't do anything. But at the same time, it's like if you choose to only be your authentic self, then just do that.
Yeah, it's easier.
Yeah, just it's
Way easier.
way less pressure. You're gonna find that it flows a lot easier, and then it'll probably end up leading to abundance and flowing in other areas, and money might come in faster than you ever thought it would. And it's like just from being true to yourself, and like that's a scary thought in itself.
I do think it's impossible to do with like, I think we're up to like 63. I've done 63 podcasts or something. It's like it's hard to hide who you are for that long over that many hours of recordings. Like,
yeah,
it's like I always say, and I always like when people come up to me like, I like the podcast. I'm like, oh, that means you like me.
Yeah.
Because you can't fake that for that amount of time.
yeah,
So that's one positive thing about doing this, as I really enjoy that. And I like the reaction it gets. But yeah, a lot of people, I think, try and hide who they are through just photos and 10-second videos. And that's easy to kind of hide behind that because you don't get as much personal information through that person. We just touched on as well, you're talking about the world's becoming more invested in technology and the way it's going. How, as a creative now, has AI affected your work in a negative and a positive?
depends how you look at it. Start off with, because I don't know if there's a negative at the moment, because you can get caught up in.
I guess the negative I would say is like it can create, like AI can create images and photos and
This goes back into what we were just talking about. If you can be authentic, there's no technology in the world that's ever going to be able to replicate that deeper level, because that comes down from your whatever your like podcast, for example. Like yeah, you can go and create like voices and clone voices and have a fucking podcast and make the person fake whatever, like deep fakes whatever. But can they have the deep level conversation that knows that you have in your experience in your life? It's always going to be different, because you can never tap into that, because no AI has been through the shit that you've been through.
That's just playing devil's advocate here. Just say you take a photo of, and I saw this online, you take a photo of like a city, it's all bluebird, and you put it into AI and say, oh, can you do this but add clouds and stuff?
Yeah.
And it will come and change and alter it. Do you think that's kind of, because then you've got photographers that it's like you're kind of making this perfect picture, and obviously you're taking the photos as well, but then you're getting AI to remaster, change color, and it's kind of, I guess that could be seen as a negative, but also as a positive is like it's making it better, but then it's not you actually. That's the only negative.
It's an interesting one, because it's like it's different. I would just say it's different, because the first one says if you can't see the beauty in the first one, then that's okay, because you've got a different intention than what I do. For example, like I've been playing around with using like it, turning my photos into like a painting sort of a situation, and like I like it because it's different. Like I'm not saying that that's my end result, but like I can have two different things now from the one. So like it's enhancing what I can do, and it's pushing my creativity faster. Like, because then I can say it's going to take over my job, or it's going to do. Well, it could for sure, but if I don't learn how to use it, then maybe I'm going to get caught up with it too. Like that's the whole other thing. It's like can you learn to use it to your advantage, and how far can you take it to push your output to make stuff that you like doing? Like, what does that look like? Because I can tell you right now, it's saved me so much time in my life using AI technologies, even though that there is downfalls. It's just being able to be honest and accept that that's just how things are.
Yeah, not fight against it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Put clouds in the sky if you want. I don't care. I like no clouds.
What do you think the danger is with it, or do you feel like there's going to be a risk where if it gets to like how far it goes? Because I heard a thing the other day where obviously a lot of people like kind of doomsday and it's going to wreck everything.
Oh, we're fucked.
And you think it's?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know how long, but
You think it's going to go bad?
yeah, for sure. I don't think it's like technology is powerful, like really powerful, and some people get in the wrong hands can use it. It's like when you watch these movies and shit happens and you're like, there's no way that's going to ever happen in real life.
Transformers.
It's happening.
Not Transformers.
It's happening.
Well, Transformers would be one,
Yeah.
wouldn't it, really?
Yeah, well, it's no
Terminator.
What's not saying that a car can't turn into a bloody
Skynet.
yeah. Like it's I don't know. There is obviously like I haven't really played around with the AI where it generates the photos from scratch, like just text based. I understand there's obviously some sort of like creative skill involved of writing the right things to get that, but I've just never. It's just not my thing. I just enjoy doing it myself. But if other people like doing it and it's a way for them to get creative, and it like because the creative side of a human is like tapping in the feminine. So like if people can start then being more creative and having a more balanced life because they can tap into that feminine side of their life, then I'm all for it.
You're pro AI and up to an extent.
Yeah, I'm pro. I'm just pro things.
Up until the point where it takes over and
Yeah,
you're enslaved by it.
yeah, but it's like if I don't have control over it, which I don't,
Yeah.
it's like
when you're in the wave.
what the fuck am I supposed to do? I can't negatively talk on it and be like, oh, take it away, because shit's not going away. So it's like, how about I just accept and learn how to use that to the best of my advantage to, I guess, live how can I take things out of my life that I don't like doing and make writing emails, for example, sometimes like just writing email to the way it's supposed to be without fully getting caught up in like, if it's a business email and like getting caught up in like an emotional state of like getting fucking angry or something. It's like, how do I take myself away from that and just try to articulate what I'm trying to say in a professional way?
Yeah, I get you.
One example.
I did hear a thing not too long ago that kind of made, because I think the same thing. I think it's, I think we're going the right direction to kind of
Boom.
put within something that's not good. But then someone said this thing. It's like the smarter people get on this planet, the more they want to help this planet. So if you got something that is smarter than us, it could possibly be like, all right, well, I actually want to help create a better utopia of this world or planet or whatever, instead of doing the opposite of. But then I guess it comes back to, if it saw us as like, okay, well, you guys are not doing a good job of looking after it. You're the problem.
Yeah.
Seeing it from that side.
If you go back to like even not AI, right? If you think about like where we came from, like in the horts and car, like back in those days before we had cars and shit, like the earth was pretty cool. And then we fucked it up then. And now we're just doing it again, but with the completely different thing that we also created. So it's like, if people get caught up in like the AI is just ruining the world, it's like, yeah, well, we've been driving around cars and putting fucking emissions into the bloody Earth's atmosphere and destroying shit for way longer than you didn't care then. So like, why are you caring now? It's like, it's only because you can't control it and people getting scared, which is cool. But like, it's also like challenging people now to be like, as you said, helping, like maybe we can save shit. Maybe things might get better. Who knows?
Like you said, we're along for the ride. We don't know where it's going to go, but definitely it's going to be interesting. Next 10 years.
Oh man,
next year.
Next 10 years.
Next week.
That's next week. Like I generally don't think right now. Like I think back to like if you went into school, like if you were at university, fuck me. Like within like 2 weeks from now, the shit that you knew like 2 weeks ago is probably irrelevant in a lot of areas. Like, and that's scary.
Well, isn't it something like every day there's more information created than like we would create in like 10 years. Like it's like every day so much information is produced and pushed out.
Yeah.
It's
And
just,
that's like, and then that's sort of like the ethos on like the AI technologies, right? Goes back in. Let's go full 360 here, and let's go back to the gambling and that sort of side. AI can be like that. Like it can be addictive. Like people are going to get addicted to it because they're living in a reality that doesn't exist necessarily in the third dimension, right? So if people are going to go down that rabbit hole, it can get real dangerous real quick. Like VR games, like this whole, I don't have to talk to people anymore, man. Like that's
well, even if you've got AI that's like, just say you get a robot or something that knows emotions, that knows you, that knows everything about you, that knows you better than you know yourself, that knows when you need love, that knows when you need food, that knows like real connection with people is going to get, I don't know what you even call it. It's going to get really strange. Like, it could be like, okay. And it could be seen as a positive for a lot of these like men or women that feel very isolated and alone. Okay. Now you've got this robot that will do everything you want it to do, be there when you want it to be, everything like that. Why do I need normal person connection?
Have you seen Black Mirror?
I've seen it, yeah. So, and then it comes back to,
weird.
this is the whole thing. Then it comes back to, I guess, and this is another point that I heard, because there's a whole like idea of population collapse. Because obviously people aren't reproducing or want to, and it's a massive issue that's coming up. I think Japan went backwards in population by like 100,000 people, like the first time in years that they've gone backwards. But then I heard this good point as well, where it's like, if we're striving so like full throttle for AI and creating these robots, because the thing is, they don't think we'll have like carers, or like there's going to be such a old generation that aren't going to be able to be cared for the younger generation. But then this person's point was, well, we're creating robots and AI and all that, and they kind of fill that gap. So it's this weird thing where it's like, we're just going to have lots of robots, not that many young people and heaps of old people. And how long is that going to pan out until like, and where's the balance going to go with that as well? So weird time.
Oh man, it's like, yeah, as I said, I don't know if I can.
Think about when you were a kid. Do you think you'd be talking about AI becoming a real thing?
I think, do you know what's like crazy? It's like, I think about my cameras and stuff, right? Taking photos and memory card. Man, when I was in school, I had a floppy disk with 512 megabytes that could fit onto that. That's it. That's like 3 photos on my camera. 3 photos I could put on that. Like, and this is like, it's crazy dial-up internet.
Dial up, yeah.
Like Starlink. Yeah. What? Like, it's the smallest things. Like, and then to be honest with you, I'm pretty grateful that I grew up when I did, because like, even
I think we got the perfect time.
we did like going riding your bike, or going to build a cubby house, or what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm just going to go like climb some trees or some shit. Like, this is what I did anyway.
I got like a phone at like 18.
Yeah.
Which is almost the perfect thing.
Because I was going on road trips, and mum's like, how do I contact you? That was it.
But how good is that? I look at like, oh man, like imagine trying to be focused as a kid at school.
I couldn't do it. I literally could not do it. Like, there's so many things that, like, you see kids, like I've seen it, right? When you go out for dinner or something, the family sitting there, and there are 3 kids sitting there with their iPads, and I'm like, what even is that? Like, I wasn't allowed to leave the table until I finished dinner, you know, like they're just sitting at the table watching. Like, what does that look like? Like, I think we've been going down this path for such a long time.
And they ordered dinner off a QR code on the table, so they didn't connect with the waitress or the waiter, and they got their food dropped off, and it's.
But yeah, if you can break through it, I feel like that's where it gives me motivation to do what I do. Like, I feel like storytelling on that deeper level is like, that's where I'm breaking through. That's my thing. Like, that's what I do. And as long as I do that and I'm true to that, like, no AI will be able to catch up with me.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm using it along with me. So
He won't be able to catch up. He'll just be here with
yeah.
He's like your Robin.
What is it?
Your
What's that word?
Batman.
You can't beat him, join him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm joining him.
So he's like your Batman, and Robin's AI, and you're just going to take over Gotham.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, Robin can help me out.
I like it. All right, we're going to wrap this up because we got a few questions. I always end with these questions because we've been going 2 hours.
Yeah.
By the time we get through this question, probably 2 hours.
Yeah.
What is something, if you could go back in your life and change something, what do you reckon that would be? If you could go back and alter something or do something different, and then, because it's hard because everyone always like, oh, well, I'm in a good place now and I'm happy now, so I wouldn't want to change anything. For me, if I go back, I'd read more books. I'd be more curious. That was kind of the thing that I would like say to
Yeah.
kind of trigger something. But if you have
I'd
something,
love
in
to
mind,
I'd love to have learned more learnt languages in school, probably. That would have been a cool one.
when you're young and your brain can actually
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
process it in a way.
I'd love to be able to speak like 4 languages now. I think that'd be really sick. If I could change that, I definitely would. Man, to be honest, like if I didn't have to go to the bottom, like and get to that deep fucking bad space in my mental health, I'd rather not have gone there. Like
Yeah, but
I
then
know I'm in a good spot now, but like it'd be nice to be in this good spot without having to go there.
yeah, but I heard a thing. It's like for your for your leaves and your branches to touch heaven, your roots need to go to hell.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I don't. It's not like it's a worse thing, but if I changed it and I didn't have to go through that.
But I just don't think
No, it's not reality.
It's not reality. It's just like you're like I want to get fit, but I want to work out.
Yeah.
It's like you gotta go through the pain to get the
Yeah,
result. Yeah. I do know what you mean though.
Yeah, but that's probably it. Like languages and yeah, I don't know. That's probably.
What are you scared of?
Oh, that's a really good one. What am I scared of? Probably scared of failing, maybe, but not at the same time. Like it's a weird. It's like almost scared that maybe I'm not good enough. Like, and that goes back into what I was talking about before, like the belief in myself. I'd probably like that, the belief that maybe was I wrong? Do you know what I mean?
You're kind of not scared on failing, but scared on not giving enough or not giving.
Yeah.
Not.
I always
feeling
feel
like you're
it's-
good enough to do the thing. It's like it doesn't matter if you get fired from the job, but you're kind of scared of not giving it everything
Yeah.
in the job.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you want to be remembered?
Well, I think it's just being authentic and being me, like being the strongest version of myself that allows other people to be lifted up around me.
Nice.
That's probably a good one. Yeah.
I like that. And now, so I get the last guest to ask a question. That's the next guest. So the last guest asked, if you could have any job in the world, money's not an issue, anything, what do you think you'd want to do and why?
Oh, that's a good one. What I'm doing, to be honest, I've literally I've touched on this a lot recently, like really thinking about if I wasn't doing what I'm doing right now, what would it be? I really like what I do. Like maybe I could travel a little bit more. That'd be really cool. I could travel around the world doing it. It'd probably be the only thing that I would do. If money wasn't an issue, I'd be on a plane every day, going to a new location, going to fucking Africa or wherever it is. I think that's probably it. Travel the world, learn new cultures.
Do new things.
Yeah.
And tell stories in the process.
Yeah. I think that'd be it.
Nice. I like that.
I'd sign off
Let's
on
go
that.
do it. Let's go. Where do you want to go first?
Oh, man, I reckon Patagonia.
Yeah.
I reckon Patagonia would be sick. Oh, so many cool. Brazil. I do want to go to Brazil, actually.
Nice. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's find someone. We're going to interview someone, the top. What's the top of Rio de Janeiro?
Oh, I know what you're talking
It's like
about.
Mount Sugarloaf and then the Jesus.
I'm mental blank right now. So
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna
Anyway,
try.
we need to go there. That'd be cool. Interview spot. You can set something up cool. All right. Thank you, Devin Cooper. Anything you want to say, sign off? Where do people find you? Any last words to say to the listeners before we shoot off?
Thanks for having me and having this awesome conversation. We've been putting it off for a little while, and it's awesome to just jump in here and to get the first one out of the way. So yeah, thank you for that, and to dive into the deeper conversations. It's really, really cool, and hopefully the audience can take something from it. And if you can find me on socials, it's just devoncooper.co, DEVON Cooper. Pretty well across every single platform. It's the same, so it's easy.
True. Easy.
About it.
Any last words?
Believe in yourself and just don't even worry about the known. Just go for it. Just do it.
Just do it and stay dangerous.
Stay dangerous.
Sick. All right, man. Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Oh, go down the podcast.